A few days ago, we received our weekly dose of Isle news in the islecord's Phase 3 channel. However, instead of the usual concept art or some remarks regarding the game's development, we got something much more interesting. A detailed breakdown of one of the upcoming playables coming this year, the Ceratosaurus. This rather extensive post explains many facets of this mid-sized theropod, many of which unknown to us until now. So today we will explore all the new information we got and see how cera will function in Evrima. Let's begin with what we knew the most of, their diet. Cerato will apparently be the only carnivore capable of consuming all kinds of meat regardless of their decomposition stage, including bones. This raises their survivability level by a large margin. Being unaffected by rotten meat vastly increases their possible food sources, significantly reducing their necessity for hunting or confrontation with other predators, although the latter will probably still exist, but for reasons that we will discuss in just a second. In fact, they are so adapted to consume this kind of flesh that ceras will actually prefer putrid corpses rather than fresh ones due to their second core mechanic, their infectious bite. We also knew that pretty well, however this post gives us some extra insight. We were aware that ceras can build bacteria in their mouths, which then can infect other animals through biting, and once infected, the victims will convulsively vomit, being unable to attack during that act. However, now we also know that the potency of the bacteria will differ depending on how long the body is decaying, adding an extra layer of complexity to the system. This is effectively a Cerato exclusive resource which is filled through feeding and consumed through combat, with the extra component of varying in potency depending on their previous meals. This, in turn, will heavily influence Cerato players to prioritize the most rotten corpses available to refill their mouths with the deadliest bacteria they are able to find, not only cleaning up the map from what is for most an undesirable food source, while it also alleviates pressure between the different predators, resulting in less attrition since they don't need to fight for the same body as often. They are so specialized on this diet that their scent is tailored to detect decaying bodies much further away than any other playable, making them a full-on necrophagous dinosaur. However, this highly efficient diet comes at a cost, and the price seems to be an insatiable appetite, not only requiring large amounts of food, but also consuming flesh at an incredibly fast rate, which comes with the additional disadvantage of making the process of sustaining large Cerato packs seemingly unfeasible or at least highly unviable. As a matter of fact, if we check Cerato's profile, it is mentioned that they are exceptionally aggressive towards other cera packs, so assuming that this behavior will be promoted in the game, it will be expected this dinosaur to fight mostly with its own species than anything else, with the extra note of consuming each other in the end of the confrontation, so cera is a confirmed cannibal, which in Evrima usually has some pretty negative effects. It is also mentioned that they are food aggressive, implying that they will be possessive feeders, displaying high levels of aggression towards any creature near their food, something shown in this small clip. By the text above, it seems that this is an autonomous behavior, meaning that this will happen automatically in the presence of competitors, which would make this part of the Ceratosaurus teaser last year make a lot more sense. It wasn't specifically said that they possessed a high metabolism, only that they consume large quantities of food, so it isn't clear if a specimen is able to not eat for a long time but then later consume an entire body in minutes, or if they require a constant supply of meat. I'm currently leaning on a former since it wouldn't be very logical a necrophagous dino having high metabolism due to rotten meat heavily lacking in nutrients, but neither options were clearly confirmed in the post, so we will have to wait and see for that one. Other than diets, Evrima Ceratosaurus is getting some significant changes when it comes to their stats and combat capabilities. Their dense osteoderms will finally be put into good use because Ceratosaurus will now be a rather tanky meat eater, having some level of armor since it is mentioned that their thick skin will prevent them from suffering meaningful injuries even by larger creatures. On top of that, they will also have a strong bleed resistance, so in a way, we got Ceratorex back, boys. In fact, their resistance to bleed is so strong that they have an innate bleed reduction until their HP levels reach a certain threshold, making ceras a very scary opponent to dedicated bleeders like Omnis, Allos, and maybe even Stegos.
But wait! There's more!
Their tinkiness goes even further. Not only they will have damage mitigation, bleed reduction, and bleed resistance, they will also be immune to damage while eating, an honestly hilarious way to showcase their gluttonous and tough nature. It is said that their immunity only applies to damage beneath a certain amount, clearly a feature made to prevent small animals like Troodons, Hypsies and others from interrupting Cera's meal without making it overly powerful to the rest of the roster. When it comes to natural disadvantages, the developers chose to focus on their speed and damage, making Cerato a slow predator for its size that doesn't deal a whole lot of damage. It does attack very fast though, an aspect that perfectly synergizes with their bacteria bite and tanky attributes, not making it necessarily deadly, but a very tough cookie that is better to avoid not because it is strong, but because it would be very hard to kill and probably not worth killing it in the first place, since vomiting depletes your stomach, so you would probably end up having less food in the end. This changes when it comes to Cera versus Cera conflicts though, due to the confirmation that they are not affected by either their own or other specimens' bacteria, which will most likely mean that their fights will be more of a war of attrition rather than a brawl. And that's all we got from the post. I have to say, these are amazing news. Afterthought managed to take Cerato from legacy and rebuild it from the ground up, not only providing a very unique and interactable niche, but also bringing back a small part of its lost identity while at the same time making it viable in the current and future roster. There was a certain level of concern about it in terms of survivability since they have such large competition with Carnos, Allos, Albertos and maybe Sucos, but this plan makes them capable of surviving with relative ease despite their size without making them overly powerful. Making them a slow, tanky vulture was a smart design choice that fixes Cera issues without taking agency away from other upcoming predators. Well, at least in theory, of course. But even if it comes out with some unstable stats, their core design sounds incredibly promising. This heavy change in playstyle may disappoint some players though. Throughout the entire post we can see that there's an emphasis of consuming already dead prey rather than active hunting, so this scavenger way of play might be something that previous Cera mains might dislike. But my optimistic side tells me that they will still have plenty of confrontation due to how food aggressive the developers are making it to be, especially against other members of their own species, so if anything players might get bored of constantly fighting other Ceras. Although with such high bleed resistance, I wouldn't be surprised that some players would specialize in hunting Stegos, something that will be even more plausible with the introduction of perks in the future. Another good news is that we will apparently get Ceratosaurus relatively soon in the update 6.5 alongside Troodon, a smart decision if you ask me, cause I have seen barely any excitement for the latter. But what do you guys think? Do you enjoy how Cera is turning out to be? A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you want to join the ranks, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server for memes and Pillar Nut stuff, and I hope to see you next week.